everybody. Welcome to Beyond I Do. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed. I've seen so far that because today dropped the Dolores and Steve podcast, and seeing so much people who enjoyed it. Good. I saw one person's comment like, I just started getting teenagers and I don't know what to do in this season. This was great. Yeah. So that wasn't our last week's episode. What episode did we do last week?
Last week was Allie and Eric, so that's going to be next week.
So by the time you're hearing this, you already heard the Allie and Eric one, which was a fun one.
That was
Dating.
fun.
That was
Okay.
We'll have a part two.
Nancy had a thought of something we tackle on today. We've done some ones in the past, parenting, marriage. We just did another single one. And so Nancy brought up a great aspect of like keeping in the theme of where we were at with Allie and Eric. And so I'll let Nancy take away what she pitched when I walked in, like, hey, I think we should talk about this. I was like, no, I think that's good. We should do that.
Yeah, so we haven't actually covered this topic. And you know how people can submit questions?
Yeah.
People are submitting and asking about breakups. So how do you navigate a breakup? Whether you're in one right now, whether you've gone through one, what's the healthiest way? Obviously, each situation can be different. I mean, you guys have seen me go through. So it's just like, what is your advice on when somebody is breaking up? What should be done? What boundaries should you set?
Yeah.
Is there a possibility of getting back with the person?
Yeah.
It just all depends. So when in the dating phase.
or when's a good time to call it quits? Or
when do you really walk away from a situation?
Yeah. You went through a lot of breakups before you met me.
One too many. Well, I'll say, what's crazy about when I had my breakups, the college one was really ups and downs, heartbreak, sadness, cheating, all of that. And so that one was, and I was just very immature. So I took it hard, but I didn't take it hard because I was so busy. I was in college. I was playing soccer. So I was distracted. So there wasn't a moment where I felt like I could sulk in this. Yeah. And then I had the personality where I was like, well, too bad he doesn't want me. I'm going to make him want me even more. And then I would go date his friends.
Dang.
Yeah. That's
you a homewrecker.
Sure was. I was like, let me go pick, because I had a car. I lived off campus. I was like, I'll go pick him up in front of them and go. Yeah.
God.
Oh yeah. I was me.
Yeah,
I was
grimy.
That was. My mom doesn't know these stories. So
oh, Lord.
that was me. But I will say, when it got to the end of the road of that relationship, because we dated for 4 years on and off, and when it finally got to that point, that was the one that I had lived with. That was the one where we were going to be getting married. That was in my head. We were going to get married. And I was at home. We had gotten home from my brother, we went to my brother's wedding in Vegas, and I was at home for a little bit. And I had just went to the gym, and I came back in the house, and I had one more year of college left. He was going professional. And I got into my mom's house. I was going to go back to school, finish my last year. He was going to be getting drafted. And before I walked in my mom's house, the Holy Spirit said, "You're not going back."
Because you were living with him at that time?
I was living with him. So I had flew to Vegas from living with him in Virginia. And so it was in Virginia, flew to Vegas, and then went to my mom's. And I was like, I'm going to go to my mom's house before I go back to college.
And how long were you with him?
4 years on and off.
4 years
on and off. 4 years on and off. And so when I got to my mom's house and I was walking in the door, and that's where I say, like, is so genuine, so pure. Parents, I encourage you, pray for your kids. You have to continually pray for their purpose.
And even when they're not living to the standard.
Absolutely.
I know your parents personally, obviously they're my in-laws, but I knew they weren't proud of you at that time in the sense of you living with someone and, them being elders and deacons in a church and having good, strong faith themselves. And, because I knew that because your parents would talk to my dad because I didn't know you at that time, but your parents would talk to my dad and be like, pray for our daughter. We're praying for her. Like, she's not really walking the life that we have taught her in her faith. Right. She's living with someone who they're not married. They, they're obviously doing all the things that non-married people do. Right. And so, but they consistently prayed for you,
right. Right. And so I walked through that door with my mom, and I looked my mom in the face, and I said, I'm not going back. And she goes, so are you breaking up with him? And I go, yeah, I'm breaking up with him. I don't know what came over me, but I was very like,
Set.
yes, very set, like very like, and these 2 instances that this has happened where I think I've told you that before, the Holy Spirit has spoken to me like loud and clear within, like I could hear it was like, you're going to University of Florida and then you're breaking up with him. Those are the 2 instances. And I called him and I said, hey, I'm not coming back. He goes, okay, bye. Literally just hangs up. It says, okay, bye. And then calls me back maybe 2 minutes later and goes, so does that mean we're done? I go, yeah, we're done. So I'm sure he'd have a different narrative, but I'm very vivid in my mind of I know what happened, of the standard that I knew that God had for me. And going back to saying like my parents pray for your kids, because my mom didn't know everything that I had gone through with my ex. To this day, she still doesn't. And I know for a fact those are things that they would not accept for me and their child. And they would be heartbroken and they would be sad. So for me, I think parents continually pray because God will work. God will whisper. He will protect as long as you stay faithful to him. Because it was one thing where this is a side subject too, but like when you release your kids to God and have that covering, you have to let go of the reins and give him full trust over what's going to happen in your kids' lives. Yeah. You have no say, like who they date. If you're like, God, I give you my kids, you are saying, God, they are in your hands, and regardless of what happens, I trust you. So my mom had done one of those moments. She literally, she said, she told me it was like on a Thursday, or it was on a Saturday night. She was like, I don't know what came over me. I told God, I release Ashlee to you. And I was in college. Yeah. I was in college. My mom's like, I finally released my child to you. Yeah. Like, I whatever, it's free to you. And that Sunday I had a soccer game. I tore my ACL.
Wow.
And she's like, this is not what I had. God, that's not what I meant. Like, I told you to protect her, and God had a different story. And so it wouldn't have, if I didn't tear my ACL, I probably would have gone pro. I probably would have had a different life. I probably would have different things, but all in God's timing and all in God's story. But back to,
well, you did go pro, but what do you mean, like maybe like,
but like right away, and who knows if I would have stayed with him, because we would have both left at the same time. It would have been like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is so I had a whole nother year that I had to stay back. Because I redshirted, and so I ended up having a whole nother year of school. So I stayed for 5 years instead of 4.
Super senior.
Yeah, one class, gym, soccer, easy. But back to the breakup, it was something where there were moments where I was sad. I can't say that wasn't the case. And there was moments where I was jealous, but God kept reminding me of the bad before he'd remind me of the good. Yeah. And I think that sometimes, depending on the breakup that you're in or depending on how the relationship went, I think and it's not to say the bad in the person, but the red flags that is not acceptable for a marriage or not acceptable for or worth fighting for, because infidelity is something that you can forgive and you can rebuild and you can earn trust back, but that's a process, and God knows you and knows what you can handle. And that's clearly something that I couldn't handle, because like we said, I brought that into our marriage, and it was something that was toxic and traumatic that I had to get over myself, to where I was like, I could never trust somebody if that happened. So during that time and that breakup, it was a process to where I dealt with the emotions of it, and being on the college campus, I thought about things and did things, but there was never an instance where I begged for him back. I never called him back. It was one of those things, because the Holy Spirit, because it would be me going against God, saying like, you know what, God, maybe I can forget about these things. Maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe it was the wrong timing. And I don't think there's ever a wrong timing when God's within it. Like, I think if he tells you one thing, God is not a God of confusion. So when God tells you the first time that it's not it, it's not it. Yeah.
Well, and what's big is like, we didn't go through it with Allie and Eric just for the sake of time, but more so a conversation for probably women, because women seem to have, and that's what's big right now on social media, is they have a list, right? They have the list.
Yeah.
And I know Mike Todd, even in his book, he talks about that, tearing off. You're going to tear up the list. If you want to find your one, like whatever that list is, you need to tear it up, because you're preventing God from showing you who God may really have for you. And I like that perspective that Mike shares about that. And I can agree. I agree in the sense of, for you, and here's what I mean, is like when I started dating you, and I have my own story, but when I started dating you, one of the conversations I had with one of my friends, because we all grew up in the church together. You grew up in Abundant too, since you were a teenager. So, but we missed each other.
Yes.
You and I never met when we were kids. You knew of me because I was the pastor's son.
Tried to.
Yeah.
But
you had a little schoolgirl crush on me,
Sure
but
did.
but we never met, and so we didn't have a relationship. I knew your dad. That was about it, because he served in youth. So, you know, when you and I started dating, it wasn't really public, but some of our friends knew in the church. So
Right.
I remember one time I'm going to lunch with my friends, and then one of my friends said, "Bro, can I ask you, how do you do it? How do you date her, given the boyfriends she had in her past?" Talking about you.
Yeah.
And for all intents and purposes, like you have had on paper the dream men that any woman would want. You, the guy you were with 4 years, he became a famous professional football player. You dated a professional basketball player whose dad is a very famous coach. You dated one of the world's most famous Olympians in the world, and all of which who were all very wealthy, all who were very famous, all of which were very talented, all of which were very aesthetically look good. They were all 6'4", 5', 6'6", 6'7". They all 0% body fat. Everything that a girl who has a list goes, this is it.
Yeah.
He's famous. He's got money. He's tall. Like, those were all your ex-boys. And so when my friend's saying that, you know, I'm 5'8". I don't have 0% body fat. I looked good back then too, but I didn't have 0% body fat. I definitely didn't. I had a 1-pack, not a 6-pack. I wasn't famous.
Yeah.
I wasn't rich.
Yeah.
You know, made $45,000 a year when you met me. I you know, didn't have any of the accolades these guys had, and so I don't think my friend. He's a great friend. I was not offended by the question whatsoever, but I could see why he was fascinated with the concept of why did it not seem to bother me.
Right.
I think for girls, like, help some women through breakups, because a lot of people, and I even had this experience with my bad breakup, is this idea that you think you'll never get someone better than what you had.
Right.
And your stuff has infidelities and all that in there, but in the regards of, for you, like, a lot of girls, and you even had people in your life that were like, hey, just suck up with it.
Yeah.
Suck up. Like, so what? He cheats.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be taken care of.
Right.
Like, if you marry him, you're going to be good. Like, you're going to have the house, you're going to have the money, you're going to, and literally, like, when I met you, you're like, there were people in my life that were like, Ashlee, just get over it. A little infidelity is not the worst thing when you look at the life that you're going to get if you marry this guy.
Yeah, I had someone say that every man cheats, so you just got to choose the man. And I was like,
No.
Like, wait, what?
So, no.
And so Ashlee's getting from Christian people advice like this, you know?
Yeah.
And I got my friends who are, by the time we meet, that are like, dude, how do you do it?
Right.
Like, I'd be so insecure, and there wouldn't, back then, now we're all older and a lot of those guys are retired or they got canceled or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, back then I couldn't turn on ESPN without seeing one of your ex-boyfriends. And so, but with that said, like, you know, and I've said on other podcasts before and stuff, like, it never bothered me because I know my worth, but to maybe, and when I say lesser man, I don't mean like a lesser man, but a lesser man mentally in terms of how he views himself, a lesser man that would bother him. He'd compare himself to your ex-boyfriends or whatever. So, like, for you, at what point were you just like, this is kind of bogus, this whole idea of like these guys that I'm trying to date and chase and be with that have everything that every girl wants on paper?
Yeah. You know, it was something where I was when I was living in Chicago, and then, you know, my dad got sick. So I had a relationship when I was in Chicago, and I ended up, obviously that ended. And so then I moved home, and it was one of those questions I had to ask myself, like, what do you want in life? What do you want, Ashlee, in life? Do you want to be single, happy, surrounded by your family that love you? Or do you want to be in a marriage or a relationship where you have to always forgive and forget? Mm-hmm. And I genuinely asked myself that question as far as like in the next relationship, or if I do get in a relationship, what am I going to expect? And so I didn't want a relationship. At that point, I was just like, because I thought I had a type that I was going to only go after, that was what I was for the last 4 years in college to after college. Like, that was the stereotypical guy that I dated, like, had to be an athlete. I mean, I snuck a boyfriend at 18 and he played basketball. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, I'm an athlete. I'm going to date an athlete. I'm going to marry an athlete. We're going to breed athlete kids. We're going to have money. We're going to do this. And I even remember when I was younger, it was, I don't even know if I told you this. I had Habakkuk 2:2. Is it Habakkuk? Write the vision, make it plain.
It's in the Bible.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I believe it's Habakkuk. I believe that's what it is. And I had the Olympic rings on one wall. I had the Florida Gators on another wall. You saw my room.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I've been with you 10 years.
Yeah. And so, and it had that, but then underneath that, I had the car that I wanted. I had the house that I wanted,
a vision board
on my wall.
You went in a magazine and you made a vision board.
And so that's literally what I had. And it was like, when I look back at that, not to say that that wasn't obtainable, but I believe that God will change your viewpoint once he's included. Mm-hmm. I think your vision board changes when God's included.
Yeah, like you wrote the vision plain, but it was immaterial things.
1,000%.
Yeah.
So then when I had moved home and I said, I'm going to be single. I feel like I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm done. I'm tired of looking for, I'm tired of trying to be perfect for that person. It was me exhausting myself in the relationship. It was me saying, suck it up to be happy, or suck it up to be with that person. And I was like, that's not you. You're fun. You're goofy.
Well, and you weren't the best version of yourself because
Absolutely.
you weren't treating your boyfriends very well either.
No,
no,
absolutely.
Like, you wanted to make it work with them, but there were also things you did that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I cheated.
Yeah,
I cheated because I was like, if this is what's gonna happen,
I'll be the first to do it.
Sure do.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because I was like, if it's gonna happen to me. And I did it once. It was awful. It was the worst feeling I've ever felt in my whole entire life. After doing that, I think after that happened too, it was an eye-opening experience for me when I cheated, because I said, how could you bring yourself to that point to not only, one, disrespect that person that you're with, but two, disrespect yourself to a lower standard, to say that you have no feelings, don't care at all, don't care about what that person feels like. You put yourself in front of everybody else, and you idolized yourself in that moment because you felt you had the power.
Yeah. And toxic relationships and toxic breakups will pull the worst out of you.
Oh, and that part it did. Yeah. And it really did. And I think,
because I remember when I started dating you, because your parents were elders deacons, so they were always praying for you, and they knew a lot of your business. You're very close with your parents. So when I started dating you, and my dad, who's a pastor, my dad was like, don't date her.
Yeah.
Because I told him I was going on a date with you. Yeah. And he's like, don't date her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he's like, date the youngest, which was Allie on last podcast. And so he's like, date Allie, you know, because she was still young at the time. She was still like only a freshman in college or whatever. And to me, she was so much younger, but even though she's not now, the older you get. But I'm like, no. He's like, and he literally looked at me. He's like, she has lived with men and she has not been moral in her relationship, and she has made a lot of mistakes in her relationships. And I looked at him and I was like, no, so have I. First of all, so have I.
Right.
You know, your son's a piece of trash too, you know, like, so I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
And I was like, second of all, we've only been on 2 dates and she has told me all of that. So I don't believe she's trying to hide anything.
Right.
I believe she's trying to walk her life out with Christ now. And I believe that she allowed, not that you blame other people, but she allowed bad relationships to show her, to make her think this is how every relationship is and ought to be.
Yep.
And then it happens so many times that eventually you believe the lie that, well, then I need to be the first person to do it, because eventually they're going to do it to me. And so what's the big deal?
Absolutely.
And you and I met, at the time I didn't know that, but you and I met just only months after all of that. Like when you would talk about your past, I always thought it was like years ago or whatever. And then as we got closer and you're like, no, this happened in January or whatever. And I was like, oh shoot, has she been delivered of that? It's like, I had to think about that and be like,
how early on in the dating, like when you're starting to talk to somebody, how early on do you share that type of intimate information? Like, oh, I've slept with somebody, or I'm not a virgin, I am a virgin. Like,
we did it pretty soon.
I told him our first date because I want to remind you guys, I grew up in church. So pastors, leaders, even though we were on a date, I still honored the fact that he was a pastor at my church. We were kids
and I was a youth pastor, but she had respect for that.
I still had respect for that just because in my mind, it was something where it's like, either I tell him now or it's going to come out later. And why didn't I just tell him earlier? So it's almost ripping the Band-Aid off for me, because I knew I had a past, but then also I knew my mom and my daddy and I knew they talked. Yeah. So, and I knew they were praying. So I didn't know and my dad served with you. So I'm like, I don't know if I was ever brought up in conversations. So for me, it was something that I want to tell him. But also,
the cheating aspect, she didn't tell me that until about 6 months. Into dating. So there was, as she trusted me more and more, that I was there to do what a man does, which is to cover a woman and protect her heart and to protect her when she could trust me. Yeah. And again, I had every right to make the decision whether that was a red flag with me or whatever, but I had become to know her and know her character and know that she was in a precarious situation. But when she finally told me about 6 months in, she started telling me like, I used to smoke a lot of weed. And like early on, it'd be like, oh, I tried it twice. Like, oh yeah, I've had some bad relationships and I'm not a virgin. I live with a guy. Like that stuff I knew relatively early, like first date, second date, but a little more deeper into the skeletons. Like I used to go out every night. I was very wild. I've had this life that was very picturesque of what a college experience looks like. I cheated on my boyfriend. So it was like that stuff started coming out a little more 6 months into our relationship, as what I believe, because I'm a pastor and I counsel people, what I believe is as she trusted me with her heart, she felt like she could give it all. And also as the man, I was also leading with a lot of transparency. So I was telling her about my past and my stints at the strip club and me crying because I felt convicted and, eating a hot dog on the side of the road because, I was like, this isn't the man I want to be. But that was because that came out of a tough breakup of an engagement that I was in. And that pulled out the worst side of me. So I could relate to that your failures isn't who you are. It's what you did. And so it doesn't define you, and it does, like, once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't believe that if a person truly has it doesn't mean you have to stay with the cheater. Right. I'm just saying in general, that doesn't define your character. None of your decisions, whether you have done drugs before or whatever, like the choices you made does not define. No one knows the situations. No one knows how you were raised. No one knows what you were exposed to. And so those things can have a part of it. That doesn't excuse it. You still can have deliverance from those things. And I experienced that. I had a wife. I now have a wife who, and I have those shortcomings too, but have a wife who, that one decision she's referred to did not define her. In fact, it exposed an insecurity in her that we had to deal with when she got married. And it was less about what she would do to me, and it was more about what she just expects in a relationship, which is she expected infidelity in general. Like you said, Nancy, someone said It's not that whatever you said, you're going to always cheat or,
Yeah.
you know,
Men are
find
out-
them.
Men are always
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
cheat,
But I think you bring up another great point too, like obviously topic of breakup, but then also past relationships. I think that some people may even be having a hard time, even like the fact that we were to be honest and transparent in the dating stage, and that you were able to show grace and show kindness even when I shared these tough things. Because I mean, I think it was a minute before I even told you who it was, just because I was very sensitive, and that was something that I would never too want to just be like, yeah, this is who I dated, how do you feel now? Like I never wanted to make you feel less than, because I never viewed you that way. I always felt you like showed love and kindness and care. And so the fact that you never once have ever, and I mean ever, like you only use that word when you mean it, ever judged me on my past. Mm-hmm. You never have brought that up. You've never thought that I would do something like that. You never thought less than of me. It's more so we could joke about it, which you would lighten the mood of like we would joke about certain things and not in a negative way, but like we can laugh about our past. Yeah. And I think that has become healthy for us. Because I think a lot of people sometimes get it twisted. Like I was never in your past, and I was never in your dating relationship. So I have no business there. So like when you say, if you're not in the room, then you have nothing to speak on if you're not in the room. Yeah. So I feel like that's the same when it comes to being married to somebody. Like you can't, unless it's bleeding into like how we had to head on the infidelity and my trust and my insecurities. That was something different that like I had to work through, because it happened to me, and it wasn't you bringing it out of me and saying like, well, you don't trust me, this is because you was cheated on and you need to get over that, and I ain't them, and like you've never done that. And so I think that has helped our marriage completely, where a lot of people may be like, if you've exposed or told them your past, don't bring that into your marriage. Yeah.
And I don't think like that, you know, that time that you did that to a boyfriend, I don't even think that you, for our relationship to get serious, I don't think you had to offer that information. If you know, that it, like I said, like it's part of your past. So if one day we're like married 4 years in and that ends up coming, like, how dare you? How come you didn't tell me? Now, how am I supposed to know you wouldn't do that with me? Like, that's just, that to me is kind of a silly mentality to have, because we all have our past, and we all have our especially if you're a Christian, like we all have God's grace. And so my belief has always been, if Christ died for it, who am I to remind someone of something God's already taken? And so now if you exhibited flirtatious attitudes towards men, or you always put it on me, like I know you're gonna cheat one day, and I'm, where the heck is this coming from? And then it comes out, and I'm like, okay, well, you probably should have told me this, because it's affecting our relationship, which that's why I was glad you had told me ahead of time, because when we first got married and your insecurities around infidelity started coming out, and there was a girl in the church you got insecure of, and you wouldn't let me, she served in my ministry. Mind you, me and this girl had only ever talked like 3 times. And there were other girls who were, you know, around me every day, and you weren't bothered by it. And it was like, where the heck is this coming from? And we went through what we went through with our friends. It was like, oh, okay, she has a history of insecurity around infidelity. And so we need to get victory over this. And so we go through counseling and all that to, you know, be 8 years on the other side of that. But I wouldn't have been able to have grace for you as your husband at that time, because I chose you, if I didn't get an understanding of what your past had looked like. And so I appreciate it. But it takes to me, it takes really mature people to be able to have those conversations about, hey, what's your past? What's insecure? Like, one of the things I said I was insecure about, which you had brought out of me, was I was in a 4-year relationship. Me and this girl had went up to Santa Barbara. She picked her ring, and so I put a deposit on her engagement ring. So we were planning when our engagement was going to be, when our wedding was going to be, and then one day she just stops answering my phone. 4 years into the relationship, she ultimately, my brother sees her a month later at Disneyland. They're kissing. She's kissing a guy, and so I call her. She's like, yeah, I don't want to be married to a pastor. I don't want that life. I didn't know how to tell you. I just thought we'd move on. I'm angry. I'm pissed. I'm insecure. Then my dad's like, man, you just need to fight for her. If that's what you want, that's what you want. And it was good advice. It just was wrongly applied. And so I go and meet with her parents, and I'm like, hey, I want to ask her hand in marriage. We'd been looking at this ring. I just think she's in a tough season. She's with this guy. It's because we don't go to school together. We only see each other on weekends. Like, I just think it's a proximity thing, and I want to marry her. And her parents nicely basically were just like, hey, just give her space. And the answer is no, you can't ask her to marry you. I'm like, okay, you feel stupid. You told by someone's parents, like, no, you can't marry their daughter. So then I leave feeling like an idiot. And then a month later, this guy who she was with for 4 months proposes and they get engaged. And I'm with her for 4 years. And so I get super insecure. I go through my own season now of dating below what I probably should have. And and when I say below, it means character, integrity, purpose, all these things that I just started kind of settling for and wouldn't give my friends good reasons on why I'm dating this person. It was just, oh, they're fun. I mean, but I was trying to process, and then I start making stupid decisions, going to clubs, doing fraternities, sororities, parties, all this stuff. And then I start dating you, and then a year into it, we're at a dinner and you make a statement. I'm like, hey, we were coming on a year. I'm excited. We were talking like, if we make a year, we might get married, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? And you literally verbatim said, I don't know. I'm just really considering whether I want to be married to a pastor or not. And then just flashback from, 3 years earlier. And I was just like in a tailspin because I didn't realize I didn't really heal from that insecurity of would someone be with me? Does someone want to be with me? Yeah. Does a girl want a better life? Because that other girl's response was, I don't want to be anonymous. I don't know. I wasn't working here at Abundant Living at the time. And so if we're blessed, we're at a great church. We're at a church that's been around for many, many years. And so you can trust you're going to be okay in terms of making a living. But the average pastor in America struggles ridiculously. And that was the life that she was gonna be committing to, the life of a pastor who struggles to make ends meet. And so she didn't want to do it. So your thing, you had your own other concerns about being with a pastor. But for me, that was just like, it was like a dagger. Yeah. And so, I went to the bathroom, got my composure, put some water on my face, and then that's when I came back. And then I literally didn't talk to you. I paid for the bill. The food just came. The waiter came. He brought the food. I said, hey, can you take it back? Can you box it? Can you bring the bill? We got to go somewhere. He's like, oh yeah. He takes the plate, brings the food boxed, brings the bill. I pay the bill. Tell you, let's go. Drive 15 minutes back to drop you off at your house. I said, for the next 30 days, don't call me.
Girl, yes.
Don't text me. Go spend time with God. If I'm not the man you want to be with, in 30 days, you tell me yes or no. If you tell me no, I'll shake your hand. We'll move on with our lives. If you tell me yes, you are saying yes to everything that comes with being married to me.
Right.
And so I said, go. And you're like, well, how should I do it? I say, you could call family, you could call friends, you could talk to your mom, you could call my dad, you could talk to whoever you want, but you're not going to talk to me for 30 days because I refuse to be hurt again and put myself out there again. Yeah. And so I said, let me know. Day 14, you text me, I miss you. I want to talk to you. I said, go talk to God. And that was my only response.
He was in Miami, and I was like,
with my boy Rich Wilkerson Jr.
Rude.
I was with Rich. And so that's literally was the response. Go talk to God. And that was that. Because I created a boundary for my life that said, hey, listen, this is what's valuable to me. This is what's important to me. I've been in bad relationships. I've been in relationships where I've tried to settle or change who I am or change, if we get married, it's going to be a partnership. Obviously, we're going to walk this walk together, but I'm called to ministry. And for me to say married to you and you're like, no, I want you to pull the plug now. I'm like, you knew this, marrying me, that this is where God was calling me. And so obviously I can make minor adjustments as best as I can for you as my wife or whatever. But overall, like this is what called to. And so I had created boundaries.
Right.
And the moment you articulated, this may not, but for me, it marked the boundary that said, not again. And so you're either going to get with it or get without it. And either way, I had spent that 30 days just praying, God, whatever she answers, just either separate my heart from her or give me the desires of my heart, which is to be with her.
Yeah.
But if it don't happen, then cool. But I won't go 4 years again into a wasteful relationship where nothing came out of it on the backside other than learning lessons, but nothing fruitful in that relationship.
Right.
I lost friends in there because we would always be dating and we had no community. And I was in college and my friends would be like, yo, this weekend we're going to go to the movies. We're going to play soccer. And I'd be like, no, I'm going to go visit my girlfriend. And then 4 years later, all my friends are still buddies when they graduate. And I'm the, oddball out because I fell in Romeo and Juliet. I fell in love and I didn't have boundaries,
and that's something that I'm sure a lot of couples deal with, because once you get into that relationship where you think like it's you guys against the world, you're just like, this is who I'm going to be with the rest of my life, and everyone else could pretty much kick rocks. And you've created, in that moment, there was a boundary you unknowingly created of like, I'm not going to have friends. I'm not going to have a life. It's all about this girl. I'm consumed with her because she's going to be my life. And
I mean, and even like you said with me, with your past, like, and with me, like when we were dating, you knew this story of mine, and never once did you ever ask me, how do you feel about her? What if she ever calls you back? Would you ever, you almost married this girl. What, what, how come, what if she calls you and she wants you back? What if she would, what are you going to, like, you didn't exhibit an insecurity to say, I'm not your first. I'm not the first girl you wanted to marry. I'm not the first girl you wanted. And it was like, you never made me feel like I had to define my love for you and swear to you how that girl means nothing to me and yada, yada, yada. It was like, you never brought that up. I mean, you've made fun of her. I've made fun of all your ex-boyfriends, but you never exhibited this like insecurity that's like, what if she comes around again? What are you going to do? And what does that mean with me? You're just like, man, that's his past. Same thing I did with you, which was I never thought, what if this guy or one of these guys ever hollered at you again? What if Ashlee wants that life? And it was just like, no, that's part of her story. I'm good. If she ever wants that, go get it. You're not going to get better than me. Like that was really my thinking was, man, if she don't want me, then she's losing out on the best thing for her life.
Absolutely.
And then your perception was kind of the same thing. If he don't want me and I'm not Christian enough for him and he wants a holy girl that floats from the air that has no past, God bless him.
Because I was far from that.
And you told me that on date one, we both started kind of sharing our past. Date 2 or 3, it was you were kind of just like, hey, this is the girl you're kind of looking for. I'm not that girl. I have a past. I have a history. And I'm like, I'm good with that. I have a past. I have a history. I'm straight.
So what was so I got Pastor John's perspective.
We got 2 minutes.
What was your hesitation? Was it the pressure?
It wasn't. So the funny thing is when I would talk to people about like, what does it mean to be a pastor's wife? No one had an explanation at all, because there's a difference between it being a pastor's wife, and then there's a difference between being a lead pastor's wife or having a high profile pastor's wife. So the person I probably should have been talking to was my mother-in-law, because she would only know. Because obviously knowing I had an inkling that because Adam was only the youth pastor when we first met. So I knew that I had an inkling in my spirit that he was going to be the next in line out of the 2 other brothers.
Mind you, I didn't.
He didn't. He had none. There was something about him and it was just all in his delivery. It was when he would speak, people would listen. The response that when you've been in church long enough and when people can say you're a great communicator and you know your word and you're making it really relatable, that's the type of person you want leading your church. Because if you can relate this scripture that can be so either confusing or ununderstanding, and you could just break it down so eloquently the way that he does, that's the type of leader that I want. And that was the viewpoint that I just had. So mine wasn't fear, because there was nothing, no one said anything. Mine was, where does Ashlee fall in this? Where's my purpose in this pastor's wife? Because you can title someone as a pastor's wife, and And there's plenty of pastors' wives that are stay-at-home moms. There's plenty of pastors' wives that are nurses. There's pastors' wives that have other jobs. But at that moment,
she was kind of getting some bad advice from people. And she wasn't asking for advice. People were just offering, like, if you marry him, you just got to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You become anonymous.
Yeah.
You just become first lady or pastor's wife. No one cares about knowing you or who you are. And for a girl who was a professional athlete and, ESPN
Stage
awards, and
presence
it's like, oh, so you're telling me I have to play background fiddle to a guy? Like, that's not super feminist.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not cool with that. And so that's what she struggled with, rather than the way Ashlee teaches it now to most people, which is like, Adam's Michael Jordan, I'm Scottie Pippen. Like, we're both winning championship rings. Like, one gets the Nike deal, the other one is the leading assisting person in the game. So Ashlee has said that to many women for years, that was her reconciliation, was like, I'm not anonymous. I'm on a championship team. Right. It's just one is Michael Jordan, one Scottie Pippen. Absolutely. Both very famous today.
Yeah,
one just has more of a limelight than the other, because that was just what his skill and his talent caused him. But they both are winning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that perspective had to change, and so God revealed, like, you're his helpmate, which I've said before is, Adam can't win unless I want him to win. So he was my best friend. I loved everything about him, loved the way he communicated, loved the way that he treated his friends, his respect, his character. And so it was basically God revealing, like, you guys will go to the next level as long as you are in line. And basically talking to me. He's like, I'm going to take Adam where Adam needs to go, regardless, with or without you. But this can go so much further if you learn to love what I love. And that's what God was telling me. Like, if you learn to love what I love, and that's obviously loving your husband, loving the church, loving where I've placed, spit everywhere, loving where I placed you more so than where man can place you. And so I had to realize, and during that time of the 30 days, God is like, you've always been by the man. You've always been by the book. You're always looking for accolades from man. And at this point in time, I don't need you looking at that. So stop viewing Adam as man in the sense of that he's going to either shadow you or he's going to promote you, and look at what I'm doing in your life and love the man that I've put in front of you, the godly man that I've put in front of you, and understand that this is all for a purpose and plan. And that was obviously purpose and plan, to be married, to have 2 beautiful boys, to have a successful ministry, to have a great relationship and community. And that was all, because I could have been selfish and I could have been like, all right, deuces, out. But there was something about Adam that kept me.
You would have missed your blessing. You would have missed your blessing. Your blessing of a man.
So stupid.
But I think we'll close. But I think I always say it is like, it's in the breakup, it can feel daunting.
Yeah.
It can feel, I remember when I came out of that 4-year relationship, I thought to myself, because I dated 5, 6, 7 girls after that, not intently, just hanging around, getting to know, see what I like and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, like, I'd lay in bed and be like, I don't think I'm ever gonna have as good of a relationship as I had with that girl. Yeah. And then I tell people now, I laugh because I have my wife now who's like the most model. Amazing, like she's the greatest blessing in the world. The scripture's true. A man that finds a good wife obtains favor of the Lord. I believe I'm favored today because I have a good wife, an incredible wife. And now I look, I'm like, I can't believe in that breakup season, I thought I would never get anything better than that girl, who I pray is having a great life. But I just thought I'll never. And then I look at my wife now, my relationship, I'm like, God, like, I cannot believe I actually thought I couldn't get anything better. Because you gave me, like the story of Job, even though that wasn't like a dry season, but it's like the story of Job. You gave me a spouse that is 1,000,000 times better than what I had before. Not that anything wrong with that past person in terms of what worked for me and what I need, and who's made me the man I am today. It's my wife. And so I'm like, God, you bless me with, you 10x'd what I thought I deserved, thought was right for me. You had even better in store.
Absolutely.
But we started out really, I think it comes down to like, we started really healthy and strong.
Absolutely.
We dealt with our skeletons. We put God at the center. We created boundaries.
Right.
We invested in relationships outside of each other. We did everything that Colin and Eileen were a great episode. Anyone that didn't hear that episode, like they are another picture and another rare couple that I've ever seen that did it like us, just like Gabe here did it like you and I did. But you know, it's rare to see. But I believe there's blessing from the Lord for those that approach those balances I just shared. You know.
And one more thing before I know we're going to close is one thing that I want to stay to as far as like with my dating, like because you were somebody so different from outside of what I dated. I think once you allow God to take that place and allow to take the scales off your eyes of reveal to me what I need, what you need for me, he will put that person in place because it was what I thought I needed. And what the world, like we said, the people around me thought I needed in relationships. And until I was able to be have humility enough to say, God, give me what I need, like what you see that I need, that's when you came into place. And not until then. I mean, because like we said, it wasn't something that you weren't somebody that I would have typically dated as far as the athlete type. So I think if you're in a breakup and you're like, well, I only date this type, allow God to open your eyes up to what he can have for you.
Well, you wanted to breed athletes, and now you're breeding savants. So you're blessed. You know, God bless you, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Hey Beyond I Do community, we are so excited. We have some special exciting news for you guys today. We have a brand new partnership. My husband has a lot more details than I do. I'm just sitting here looking cute. And I just want to tell you guys we have an exciting news. And it's so just for you ladies and gentlemen. So here you go.
Yeah, she's going to be our model for today pretty much. But we're excited about a new partnership that we have been wondering about with our podcasts, both Beyond the Letter and Beyond I Do. At what point would we start kind of a partnership and sponsorship? And we always felt like if we did, it has to roll in theme with what we're doing. So we still don't have one for Beyond the Letter, but we're excited. We do have one for Beyond I Do. And the new partnership we have, well, let me just tell you a little backstory before I tell you guys. Many people know that for a couple years while I was in college, what did I do particularly in the space of jewelry, Ashlee?
You were a photographer.
I was a photographer for a jeweler, but I also got to do diamond setting, gold designing and stuff like that. I worked for a jewelry company called South Bay Gold, and so I had a lot of experience in jewelry business back in the day. And many people see on the podcast I do like jewelry, and I wear jewelry, and so does Ashlee. She gets jewelry. I buy her all her jewelry pretty much.
Jewelry, I fake jewelry.
Yeah, so you never know what she's wearing, but it just so happened that I've designed Ashlee's wedding ring. I've designed, helped my brother Nathan design his wife Sanaz's wedding ring. My mother's 30th anniversary ring I designed too. So I have some history in the jewelry business. So I have a new friend named Aaron Barnett. He's a very well-known jeweler out in Los Angeles. And so we've started a partnership with Aaron. So here's what it is. Basically, it fits the Beyond I Do community because everybody wears jewelry. We all love jewelry. Some of us like to wear very inexpensive jewelry, or we like to layer it with one or two pieces of real gold or real platinum. And so as Beyond I Do is a relationship podcast, you know, if you're single, back in my single days, I used to buy myself jewelry all the time because I was single and had the money to spend on myself. Now I don't have the money to spend on myself. I spend it on my wife. So recently for our anniversary, I got my wife a memory necklace with her father on it. And then I went to Erin this week and we upgraded the necklace chain from the one that I had given her because I just gave her one of my old necklace chains. But Erin hooked us up and we got a new chain, and you'll see in future podcasts, Nathan and Sanaz got some stuff. And really what it is if you want to support and partner with us with Aaron Barnett, in our comments and in all of our show notes, you're going to see ways that you can go and check out his jewelry. Here's what I want to highly encourage you. Whether you're in a season, and I know Christmas is just about to come up, or by the time you're watching this, it just passed. You always have Valentine's Day, anniversaries, birthday. if you're ever looking to get your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, if you're ever in the season that you're looking for an engagement ring or a wedding ring, that's why we started this partnership, because it goes with relationships. And so this is real jewelry. It's all real gold. Nothing there is, any of it is not sterling silver or anything like that.
Gonna turn your finger green.
Yeah. So if you like precious metals, he makes custom things. He already has stuff on his website. So in the show notes, you're going to see that we have linked all of his Instagram stuff. But here's the thing. If you're part of the Beyond I Do community, if you go to his website, if you see something you like, all you have to do is take the link, go to his DMs on Instagram and say, hey, Aaron, I'm part of the Beyond I Do community, or say you know Pastor Adam, and you're going to get a very healthy discount off what it is that you like. But better than that, if you're looking to get something really special, set an appointment up. All you have to do is DM him or on his website, fill out a contact form and say, I'm part of the Beyond I Do community and I know Pastor Adam. You can just say one or the other is fine. And you're going to be able to get a private showing in his showroom where you can look at necklaces, pendants, rings, everything in between. If you like jewelry labels like Van Cleef and Arpels, stuff like that, he's got stuff that he custom makes in-house. You could buy a necklace all the way from $200 all the way up to $200,000. It's up to you. But really,
You said your best thing was he made you feel like a celebrity.
yeah. He makes you feel good because his studio is private. It's in downtown Los Angeles. It's on like the 15th floor. He has his own wing of this building. It's called the Atrium. It's a very famous building. And so you set an appointment up and you can go up and he'll show you everything that he has and give you water and coffee or whatever else. Really make you feel special. If you want to go with your spouse, really make your spouse feel special. So whether you want to treat yourself, make yourself feel special, or someone you love, this is a new partnership. Yeah. So if you're looking for a new wedding ring, you want to upgrade, you want to turn in your old wedding ring and build a new one. I mean, he's a real bona fide jeweler. He's very well known in the industry. He's in downtown Los Angeles and he'll treat you good. So this is the start of a partnership, and I'm excited because we want to be able to hook you guys up with some good, precious things that you can pass down. I know I have jewelry I expect to pass down to my sons. My grandma has jewelry she's collected that she's given us, and I wear my grandma's jewelry necklaces all the time to remember her. So precious metals like gold and silver are great mementos to hold on to. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So check it out in the show notes. Go to the show notes. You're going to see Aaron Barnett's stuff. By Barnett is his stuff. And just know, whatever's on his website, he has 100 times more of that in his studio. So if you live anywhere near Southern California, set an appointment. Go slide in. Let him know you know us. He'll take care of you.